Are you thinking about moving to Keyport, New Jersey? Well, this historic waterfront town in Monmouth County is often called the Pearl of the Bayshore, and for good reason. It's got charm, views, and even a small town vibe to it. But like any township, it has pros and it has cons. So on today's video, we're going to break down the top 3 pros and cons of what it's really like to live here in Keyport. So after the video is over, hopefully you can decide if it's the right town for you or not. Before we get started though, if it's your first time for the channel, my name is Steve McCutcheon, and I'm a realtor at Berkshire Hathaway. And on the Live in Central New Jersey channel, we cover everything related to the Central Jersey real estate market. So if you're going to be the first one to know what's going on either Monmouth or Ocean County real estate, feel free to click the bell, hit the subscribe button. Let's get this video started. Pro number 1 will be the charming waterfront and downtown area. I think this is one of Keyport's biggest selling points. You have a walkable downtown lined with restaurants, coffee shops, other small businesses, and then you can even see the New York City skyline on a clear day across the water. I really don't think it gets like any better than that. This town really leans into those Bayshore vibes and has different events like the Keyport Food Truck Festival. You're going to have concerts by the water, seasonal farmers markets. It really is a good mix between a small town vibe, but also a waterfront living at the same time. So really hard to kind of get in Monmouth County. In terms of the just downtown area in general, I would probably rank Asbury Park and Red Bank a little bit higher than them, but I would say it's also on a similar level as the Freehold Borough. The difference between the first two would be that I think there's more stuff to do in Asbury and Red Bank, whereas Freehold Borough is relatively similar kind of downtown area. You have a lot of different restaurants, and they do festivals, concerts down there too. The only difference with Keyport, where I think it's a little bit better, you just have the waterfront living. Con number 1 will be storm surge and flood risk. Being on the water, there's going to be some trade-offs. So living in Keyport, you're going to be low-lying, and there are some sections that will be more prone to flooding than some others. Also with heavy rains, nor'easters, hurricanes, if we ever get them. We haven't, knock on wood, haven't had one in a while, but Superstorm Sandy did leave its mark a little bit in Keyport and some of its neighboring Bayshore towns too. So just something to be aware about when you're living in Keyport. If you're a little bit farther off the water, you won't have to worry about flood risk pretty much at all, and only a small portion of town is even in the flood zone, respectively. So it's an AE flood zone, which is probably one of the better ones to have if you're going to be even living in one as well. So 2 things though with it. Your home insurance does not cover flood risk. So you have to have a separate flood insurance policy, and not every single carrier is going to cover it. So these are some things that you have to build into your cost when buying a home here in Keyport, potentially at least, right? So if you're buying in a flood zone, you need homeowners insurance and then a separate flood insurance policy. One thing I always recommend to my buyers right now is that if you can, transfer the current owner's flood insurance into your name. That is a huge plus because those premiums had not caught up versus when you get a brand new policy on the open market right now. Pro number 2 will be the commutability to New York City from Keyport. Surprisingly, extremely commuter friendly. There's a couple different ways you can actually get to New York City. The first one, we'll just talk about just driving yourself. The easiest route, in my opinion, being that Keyport is so close to Route 35, 36 area, plus the Garden State Parkway, is taking the Garden State Parkway, heading up north, and then either hopping on the Turnpike or just staying on the Parkway to whatever point in New York City that you have to get to. On average, let's just say if there is no cars on the road, easily can get there in an hour, probably closer to the hour and a half mark just because of rush hour, more cars on the road, accidents, weather, that kind of thing. So, but that's the easiest way, just driving yourself. Next up, if you take the bus, there is an NJ transit bus that's just local in the area, but if you go again out towards Route 36, I think it's technically Hazlitt, right? It's like right on the border over there. But there's an Academy bus line, and that's going to take you into either Port Authority or Wall Street. It's a big difference for some people because they aren't necessarily close together. So if you work in the Wall Street area and you didn't have access to that, you would then have to take your bus into Port Authority and then subway down to there. But you do have access to both. Last week, we've been taking the train. There's 2 different train stations close by to Keyport. You have Aberdeen-Matawan, or Matawan-Aberdeen station, and then you have the Hazlitt station. You're pretty much smack dab in the middle of them. I would probably just go to the Matawan-Aberdeen station as it's a stop ahead of time, so you just shave a couple extra minutes off your commute. But again, roughly about the same time frame as the bus. You're sitting in that like hour 15-ish time frame. The train will go into Penn Station, which is right next to basically Port Authority, so that only has access to the one area of Manhattan versus the bus having access to both. Con number 2 will be the property taxes. So while the home prices may be cheaper, which we'll get to in just a second, property taxes are still on the higher side for Keyport. I would imagine for a modest, let's just say $500,000 home there, you could pay upwards of $8,000, maybe even as high as $10,000 per year. So like most of New Jersey, it is just a part of living here. It's a cost of living. It sucks, not my favorite part, but for the right home, it kind of seems to make sense here in Keyport, especially for the right price tag. But that is something to look into. So maybe a neighboring town, you can buy a $600,000 home versus in Keyport, you maybe only do 500 or 550 just to compensate for those extra taxes that might be thrown in there. And that's not to say that other townships aren't going to have high taxes here in Monmouth County either. That's definitely not the case. But Keyport might be a little bit more on the higher side. So when you're looking for a home, just take this into accountability, right? You're going to have your possible flood insurance and a little bit higher of property taxes. Those two alone might balance out the difference in the price point of another township. So just be aware of it. Not fun to live with, but it's pretty hard to avoid paying property taxes here in New Jersey. Pro number 3 will be the affordable home prices. So for a waterfront town in Monmouth County, kind of seems a little bit odd, but Keyport is still more affordable than many of its neighbors. When you come into terms like, or towns like Red Bank, Homedale, Atlantic Highlands, and a couple others, but you still get the bayside lifestyle living here in Keyport while not having to pay the same price tag, which is, in my opinion, probably pretty appealing for your average first-time home buyer who wants to live close to the water. I'm not saying you're getting a $500,000 home directly waterfront, but most of the township is really affordable. So the median sales price for Keyport is $495,000, and compared to Monmouth County as a whole right now, which is sitting at $700,000, which is a pretty stark difference. If you add in I would say the views, the commute to New York City, the affordable prices, I don't know how Keyport isn't being hammered by first-time home buyers at this point. To me, it's basically a slam dunk. Con number 3, being Keyport a smaller town, is sometimes your amenities can be a little limited. And now, Keyport, like we've already mentioned, has a pretty nice downtown area. It has good dining options, go for a nice walk, but the town itself is only about 7,000 residents. So that means if you're looking for big box shopping, larger variety of a nightlife, maybe better entertainment, you're probably going to have to go outside the township into a Red Bank, like we've mentioned, Homedale, Freehold. For some people, though, the quiet small town feel is exactly what you're looking for. But if you want a little bit more constant action, this might feel a little bit limited to you. So when you go slightly outside the township, you'll have plenty of different shopping options on Route 35 and Hazlitt. Literally everything from Costco, ShopRite, I think some Marshalls over there, definitely a Target. Technically might be in Middletown, but besides the point, not very far away from you. Homedale is going to have the PNC Bank Arts Center, where it's 20,000 person concert venue. Red Bank has some of the best restaurants in the entire county. So while you're not far from them, you're either going to have to be able to drive yourself or take the public transportation, train, or something along those lines. So after all of that, what do you think about Keyport? It offers waterfront charm, lower home prices, and one of the best commuting centers that we have here probably in Monmouth County. But there are some trade-offs, right? You're going to have some flood risk, limited amenities, and high property taxes. So while, again, there are some pros, there are some cons. If you are looking to move to the Keyport area, though, feel free to reach out. All my contact information is down low in the comments and description. So whether you're 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, even a year out, doesn't matter to me. Let's just get you on the right path towards your real estate goals. And if you're looking to move to a different part of the Central Jersey area, check out the 2 videos popping up, and hopefully they help out a bit too. Have a great day.